start playing fantasy football, you of course need the app to play on. On your phone's app store, search Fantasy Football. From there, you should be able to find an app that looks similar to the one shown on your screen. Go ahead and download it. Once you start up the app, you should see the following. The first thing you must not do is press Join a League. Rather, sign up or sign into your fantasy football account. The top right corner of your screen is where you can do so. There you should see the following. You can create an account through Apple, Google, or Facebook. You can also use your email address by pressing Create Account. Once you have an account, it's time to sign in. Once you've signed in, it should take you to a screen where it will ask you to join a league. From here, you can press Received Invite at the bottom right of your screen in order to join a private league. A league ID and password will be required to join a private fantasy football league. These will be given to you by your commissioner. As you may see, once you joined your league, you may be thinking, what now? Your team has no players, you haven't even played a game yet, what do you even do? Your commissioner will set a draft date just before the season starts. For our league, the draft will be sometime on September 3rd, just 5 days before the NFL season kicks off. Around 30 minutes before the draft begins, you can also join the league's draft lobby. Around this time, you will see a prompt once you open your app. From there, you can join your league draft. Once the clock at the top hits 0, the draft will begin. Here you can see the chat section of the draft lobby. In this tab, team owners can communicate with other owners. This is the roster tab. Here you can see your team's roster as you draft. As you can see, the roster spots are empty, but they will fill up once you start drafting players. This is the board tab. From here, you can see a large board of all the picks that have been made. You will see it filled with players once the draft starts. Here's where you will find the players you can choose to draft. Before the draft begins, you can see and review some of the players you would like to target in your draft. Your decision making on who you may want to draft can be assisted by the ranking and projected points the NFL thinks the player might end up with. You can see these stats and more by swiping left on the player. At the top, you can see a search bar and filter. This will help you narrow down on the player you may want to draft on your team. If you need a quarterback, just tap on the QB button at the top, and it will only show you the available quarterbacks to pick from. If you have a player in mind that you want to draft but can't find him, go ahead and search his name in the search bar. This is the Queue tab. Here you will find all players you have added to your queue. Beside each player in the Players tab, you will find a flag similar to the logo of the Queue tab. If you press it, your player will be sent to your queue. The Queue tab only shows your queued players. This is useful if you have a player that you plan on drafting, but don't want to forget about him. As you can see, the draft is started. At the top of the screen, you can check what player was drafted by what owner. For this example, you can see Christian McCaffrey was being selected by Colton. You may also see that the draft board is filled up with all the previous picks, like Jonathan Taylor being selected first and Dalvin Cook being selected second. You can also see what team is currently making a pick. Here you can see what it may look like once you start drafting. If you're wondering what pick you are, just look at these two specific numbers on the draft board. The number on the left of the decimal represents what round your pick is in, while the number on the right of the decimal represents what pick of the round you have. The number in the brackets represents the pick you have in the entire draft. You have a limited amount of time to make a selection, so it is recommended that you think about who you are going to draft before your pick is up. If you do not pick before the timer is up, or you are not active on the app when you are on the clock, you will auto-draft a player. Auto-drafting a player means you will automatically get the player with the highest rank or the first player you added on your queue without any say. In this instance, I would have to select Cooper Kupp if I failed to make my pick. Pressing the plus button beside the player you want to draft will add the player to your team. You can then see your selection on the draft board, and your player will be added to your roster. After spending time carefully drafting, you can now see your entire draft board is packed with players. You can also see in the roster tab the team that you drafted. Once everyone has finished making their selections, feel free to leave the draft lobby at the top left of your screen. All of a sudden, you will be put back at the main menu. This time you will see your league. Every time you open your app, you will see this. From here, you will see your team name and logo, as well as the name of the league you are in, league or matchup to enter your league's page. Here you will see the league's discussion page in the feed tab. League updates, transactions, and conversations will be posted here. The Players tab here looks a bit different, as the only players you can now add are the players that were not picked up by any of the owners during the draft. They are considered to be free agents. Feel free to add any player by pressing the plus button to the left of their photo. If you have reached your max roster limit for the number of players on your team, you will have to drop one of the players on your current roster in order to make room for the free agent you wish to add. Now you can see there is a team tab. From here you will be able to manage your team. At the top of the screen you will see a pencil logo. Here you can change things like your team name, logo, and your owner name. You can also see these two numbers. They are the projected amount of points the NFL app thinks you and your opponent will get for the week. Scrolling down, you will be able to see all the players you have on your squad. You will see things like what position they play, what day and time their upcoming game is, who they're playing, and their individual projections for the week. You can see a player on my bench is marked with a red symbol. Players marked with the red symbol are eligible for your team's reserve spot at the very bottom of the team tab. You can move any of your players eligible on the reserve by pressing the blue button beside their photo and pressing the blue button next to the reserve spot you want to put them on. This will open a roster spot for your team since players eligible for the reserve are likely to be out for some time, so you are encouraged to add a free agent to be a temporary replacement for that player. You can also swap out players from your starting lineup for our players on your bench. Remember, you can only swap players in slots they are eligible for. For example, you can't swap a kicker out for one of your running backs. For this league, there's a flex spot, where you can have either a receiver or running back in that slot. If you want to quickly set your lineup based off their projected points, press the large Optimize button. This will automatically set your lineup for what the NFL thinks will be best for your team. Some players on your team may have a yellow symbol attached to their photos. This will normally be for players that are questionable for their next game. They are not eligible for the reserve since they are only projected to miss little amount of time. To check on your player status, just tap on the player and look on the Overview tab. Under the Matchups tab, you'll be able to see everyone's weekly matchup. It will show both teams' names, records, projected points, and minutes remaining. The minutes remaining show how much time the players on your team have left in their game. If you scroll down, you'll be able to see both teams' rosters side by side. If you tap on a player, this will come up. At the top, you will see the player and who owns him. You'll see an Overview tab that tells the latest news on that player. You will also see a Stats tab where you will see the player's stats by each week. A cool new feature the app has added is the Scoreboard section in the Matchup tab. By selecting the Scoreboard button, you'll be able to see all those NFL matchups at the top of your screen with all the league's matchups at the bottom. You can also see other matchups in your league by swiping left on the Matchups tab. If you're interested in viewing future league matchups, press the Week button beside the scoreboard in order to view other weekly games. Finally, the League tab. This is where you can see things such as team standings, records, and league rules. And that is it. That is all you have to know about the NFL Fantasy Football app.